Blog Talk Radio.
You're listening live to an edition of ATL Prime Sports. Todd Quarter here in the ATL, along with my producer, Mark Mancini in Los Angeles. JJ is out, and so is Wayne. They'll join us next week. Our guest is David Walker of the Rebel Walk, and he is going to preview the Southeastern Conference, the nation's premier conference in college football. It just means more. David, welcome to ATL Prime Sports, and glad to have you on this evening.
Todd, Mark, thank you very much. It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right, since this is ATL Prime Sports, we're previewing the Southeastern Conference. One of the questions I've got to ask you, and we got to start it right off, is I would say the JT Daniels effect from Georgia. This is the year on paper that Georgia's supposedly going to overtake Alabama, and the JT Daniels effect is when he came in late last season after all the injuries and everything like that, Georgia started turning the corner. Can the Bulldogs take that next step this year and win the SEC?
Well, I think they've got as good a chance as anybody, particularly in the East, because I think it's hands down right now with JT there now, quarterback, and new offensive coordinator who's come in. He's shaking things up. I think that Georgia's hands down the pick in the East, and so it remains to be seen if they can overtake the Crimson Tide. But I know everybody over there in Georgia is really thinking that this might be the year that Kirby could get, and quite possible. JT had a really good finish to the 2020 season, and coming out of the East there, I don't think the East is going to be quite as strong as it was last year. I don't think Florida is going to be as strong as they were. So really all Georgia's got to do is just stay healthy and win that division and get to the SEC championship game. And everyone that I know fully expects them to do it. Now, JT may be, he could be a Heisman Trophy winner. He's up there in the top 4 or 5 right now with the betting odds, and which is pretty good company, with Bryce Young of Alabama and Rattler out of Oklahoma. So, and with the, I think, opening up the offense like I have a feeling that they're going to do, Kirby's been one of the mainstays of a conservative type offense, something like what Jimbo runs at A&M. And I think he has found out that, to get any further in the playoffs and to win it all, you just got to have an excellent passing game. And I think that's what they're going to be concentrating on, particularly early in the season, but then again throughout the season. And JT Daniels is highly regarded. And Georgia, of course, is the odds-on favorite to win the East. So we could be seeing an Alabama-Georgia showdown again for that SEC championship and a trip to the Final Four.
You know what? Just switching over to the other side of the ball, David, the secondary for Georgia, it was gutted by graduations, early departures, and transfers. We all know that the receiver corps is talented. Of course, we've got the George Pickens injury to deal with, does Georgia. You're right. It's going to be about that passing offense for Georgia, and also it's going to be about defending the pass.
Yeah, I was looking at some statistics today and really came across one that I found to be particularly interesting, and that was third down conversion for last season. And I saw that Alabama was number 1 in third down conversions. And that struck me as, well, they've done it before. They're usually really high in third down conversions and also really high in the red zone percentages. But I got to looking and I saw that on third down conversions defensively, Alabama ranked 77th in the country. So, you got to turn that around. You got to look at it as Well, shoot, you have Alabama winning the national championship with the number 77 third down conversion defense. I mean, that's incredible. So I think what it tells you is that the offensive side of the ball, and I think Nick Saban has already made this comment, the offensive side of the ball is where you've got to really excel, because the way defenses are today, it's not like the old 3 yards in a cloud of dust mentality. You've got to have some real athletes out there who can play and who can run. And I think that the defense probably has a little bit less importance at this point in time for a Georgia football team than its offense does.
Hey, David, you know what? And we're going to find out how really good Georgia is right out of the gate, because they play Clemson in Charlotte to start the season. That right there, we're going to see how good each team is, and each team can probably afford a loss as long as they pretty much run the table the rest of the way. But what an awesome test, not only for Georgia and Clemson, but for the SEC and the ACC, and then, of course, what an awesome treat it is for all college football fans to be able to witness that matchup right away.
Man, is that going to be fun? I guess it's probably the best weekend. I was looking today at the lines, the betting lines that have come out. And, Clemson, I think, was 4-point favorite, and it's down to 3.5 now. So Georgia, people are liking Georgia in that game. And if the game is anywhere close to that spread where we're looking at a, game-winning field goal at the end, I mean, what is it like that will be to open the 2021 season, right? So, and like you say, Todd, I mean, we're talking about the SEC and ACC, and the way things are starting to pan out, it looks like those are going to be the two super conferences. And no disregard for the Big Ten, of course, but the ACC and SEC opening up this season as they are, with a marquee football game for everyone, it's just going to be wild. It's going to be electric, and I can't wait for that game to actually the first weekend. But I'm really looking forward to that football game. And the other one that I'm looking forward to is LSU and UCLA. I think that's going to be a really tight, somewhat explosive football game. LSU's in UCLA. That's just going to be a tremendous outing for both of them. And we're going to be able to see it a lot. I'm looking for the team like LSU of 2019. A team that comes from out of nowhere. Joe Burrow he wasn't first team preseason All SEC. He wasn't second team preseason All SEC. He was a 200-1 long shot to win the Heisman. LSU had no shot really at winning the national championship, and just went to Texas, won that first game in that SEC Big 12 matchup there in Austin. And it was lights out from there on for LSU. You just never know what coaching staff is going to come in, what quarterback is going to catch fire, what receivers are going to turn into truly great ones until we get going. And you can really tell a lot usually from that first game. So Georgia Clemson's big. Georgia Clemson is big. Really looking forward to that one. See what we have.
David, Mark Mancini here, and so blessed to have you on for this great show, the ATL Prime Sports Podcast. When I look at Georgia, and I don't want to have, the Bulldogs come after me, but when I look at this program, I got to go back to where the bar was set with this program when Vince Dooley was running it. You had Buck Bellew and Herschel Walker there. And then ever since, and this is just my opinion, it just seems to be it's been a bridesmaid trying to get past the Alabamas. Is that just dust in the wind that I'm throwing out there, or is that a pure fact that this team just has been chasing that squad ever since? Because that was a potent team back then when those three were there. It just seems like over the years, yeah, you win the conference, but you get in that championship game, and it's a different Georgia team that we've accustomed to seeing.
Yeah, you've really got a point there, Mark. I mean, Georgia just seems to be kind of a hard luck team that just gets right on the brink and then just doesn't have quite enough to finish the deal. I remember Buck Bellew really well because I was a true freshman starter myself back in '73, and of course he and Herschel came a little while after that, after I was through playing ball, and I was always an SEC guy because I grew up in Louisiana and I actually signed with LSU my SEC letter of intent before changing my mind to go to A&M. So when my career was over at A&M, I just got right back into the SEC because the Southwest Conference didn't really appeal to me. And then later the Big 12, which didn't either. So I've been an SEC guy my entire life, and I really enjoyed watching Buck Bellew play. And what was his number? Do you recall? Because it seems to me like it may have even been my number. But
what was his number?
We had an outstanding football team. And I was number 8. I don't know what Buck was, but I was number 8. But he was I always tell everybody that the reason Steve Young wore number 8 was, because I was his idol. And that's really not true, but it's nice to throw out there. So it has been a while for Georgia. It's been a while for a lot of teams. And, we all saw Mississippi State win its very first national championship of any kind just a month or so ago in baseball. And just like LSU in 2019, I'll revert back to that. I mean, if you can come out and your coaching staff is on top of their game, and you have a quarterback and receivers who are on top of their game, then miracles happen. I've always wondered about Jake Fromm. He just started out really well. I thought he was going to be the answer, and just didn't quite get it done. But I can't really single him out because there have been a number of quarterbacks at Georgia who, for whatever reason, just haven't got it done. And, it's a hotbed for recruiting. They got a beautiful campus. They do a lot of things right. They have a fan base that is rabid. And, their time's coming. There's no doubt. And I think they may want to get it done before Oklahoma and Texas going to the west and Alabama and Auburn going to the east, because that's going to present a whole different set of problems for them.
Well, that'll be some interesting times. And speaking of some interesting times, Alabama will shift over to the Tide. They're literally going to defend their national title here in Atlanta when they play the University of Miami. And it seems like, David, this year it's going to start with Alabama's defense because the offense only returns 3 players, and they had massive losses. As you know, they had Mac Jones, the nation's most efficient passer, Najee Harris, arguably the most feared big play running back in the game, Devontae Smith, the Heisman Trophy winner and probably the most feared big threat wide receiver. They lost consensus All-Americans on the offensive line and Alex Weatherhood and Landon Dickerson. And, they lost the coordinator who called the shot, Steve Sarkisian, who's now at Texas. So, we're going to find out a lot about Alabama on opening night offensively. Their defense should be good, but the question is, how good will their offense be?
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And, Alabama is Alabama, and Nick Saban's Nick Saban. And, regardless of what their situation is on offense, they change coordinators about every year. And now they brought in another one. Of course, he's very familiar with the college game, having coached there for years before going into the NFL and with the Texans and so forth. And Bryce Young, they were talking about Bryce Young last year beating out Mac Jones for the starting job in preseason. And, of course, that didn't happen. And as you said, Mac Jones was number one all time in QBR. QBR has been kept since 2005 or so, at the end of the year, and was a strong candidate for a Heisman Trophy. I don't think they're going to change anything offensively. They're going to have some new players. They're going to have new people to plug in there. That's going to give, with the defense that they have, they're going to have plenty of time to get that offense roaring again like they're accustomed to. Again, when you're number one in the country in third down conversions and you're doing something right, and I just don't think Nick is going to change anything at all with that offensive scheme that Lane Kiffin actually put in for him years back when he decided from watching Ole Miss, Hugh Freeze's offense, and watching A&M air raid that Sunderland was running. I remember Nick kind of complaining about the speed of the game and how it was bad for the players. And so he had to make a call and got Lane Kiffin in and told Lane, listen, I need to, can't beat them, join them. So that's what he's done. And it's just an amazing offense that they run there. It's a clinic every time they line up, with their tight ends or their flex ends or their, different sets and different packages that they use. And it's fun to watch. And I think it's kind of becoming the norm in college football now that you have to be a multiple offense. You've got to have different type receivers. Your tight end has to be a receiver. And Hugh Freeze started some of that when he was at Ole Miss. And kind of turned heads when he beat Alabama 2 years in a row. And, that kind of got things rolling. Alabama, they're just odds-on favorite to win the national championship, as they should be. And, of course, Clemson, even though they've got a new quarterback this year, they're up there as well. Ohio State should be back in it. That's another team right there, third down conversions. They're in the top 5 or 6 of Power 5 teams last year. A shortened year, but, still very efficient. And,
hey, David,
Georgia,
if I may ask you, we got about 12 minutes to go in the show. I just want to let everybody know where they can reach you on Twitter at David Walker QB. And also, everyone who want to go ahead and check out at the Rebel Walk. The Rebel Walk is your source for Ole Miss Rebel sports information. We'll stick with the SEC West. Like I said, we got 12 minutes left, so we're going to try to get through the top contenders before we're done quickly. Have Jimbo Fisher's Aggies arrived? Because last year was a banner season for A&M. They were 8-1 in conference play. It was their best since leaving the Big 12 in 12. They upset Florida at Kyle Field, snapping an 18-year home streak versus top 5 opponents back to 0-2. They had that come-from-behind win there over North Carolina in the Orange Bowl. Their final ranking was AP in the 4th, which was 4th overall, and it was their best finish since 1939. Can Texas A&M, have they arrived? Can they top Alabama this year?
Going to be a big ask. I mean, you got a brand new quarterback going to be Haynes King. You've got an excellent running back in Isaiah Spiller, who really showed, I think, what he was made of last year. I didn't watch A&M a whole lot last year, but I did watch the bowl game. I thought he was tremendous. And I think he, at this point, deserves that first-team preseason All-SEC nod that all the writers gave him. They have a lot of defensive players back. They lost some linemen, but they do have an All-American in there. And so, and everybody's giving them the benefit of the doubt because, Jimbo's the head coach there. Jimbo's done some things that have really improved the program. I think that they'll make a run at it. They'll make as big a run at it at Alabama as anybody in the division will, and possibly in the country. They were right there on the cusp of making it into the college football playoff last year. A&M was, and of course Notre Dame got in front of them. Notre Dame had played more games, and had a better record. A&M was 8-1. A&M missed out on playing Ole Miss because A&M had issues with COVID, and that one game right there, should they have won, and there's no guarantee that they would have, may have cost them a shot in the Final Four. So we'll have to see. But I know the momentum's there. I know everybody's, really fired up about this coming season. I think Jimbo won the national championship at Florida State in his 4th year there. So everybody's kind of transferring that over to this A&M situation. And right now, everybody, they've got a great tight end. The defense is strong. They've gotten, as you said, over some bugaboos that they've had trouble with for, this century, actually, since 2000. At home, they have a sub-500 record against Power 5 teams. And now Jimbo's gotten that turned around, undefeated last year, of course, at home. And, if he can keep, that trend going, then, of course, he's going to be bidding for one of those top 4 spots, whether he wins the SEC or not. And, we've had this conversation before about whether there should be all champions in that Final Four or whether you should have an at-large bid. And, if A&M can play Alabama close and stay undefeated the rest of the way, exactly like they did last year, they'll have a shot at getting into the Final Four. Or do we have a Final 12 this year? I'm not sure what they actually have come up with. But,
the playoffs will be 4 this year. Speaking of 4th on my list of SEC teams, the Tigers, LSU. Max Johnson looks like he's going to be the quarterback for Louisiana State, and they've got a lot of guys returning. I mean, they've got 17, 8 on offense, 9 on defense, plus they have their kicker returning. LSU has one of the best defenses in the country. And, of course, Alabama may not be as strong offensively this year. That's another team that could potentially knock Alabama off, David.
Oh, man, I love LSU. I think LSU is really a team to watch. Max Johnson was superb in that Florida game. Big old tall left-hander. He could really throw the ball around. And, Coach Orgeron's going to have those guys playing hard. They've got great talent. They've got great ability. They've got great tradition, great fans. It's just going to be, I'm looking at LSU and A&M, probably trying to run down Alabama. But you're right, Ty. LSU is going to be a real football team this year. And you can never count those guys out 2 years in a row. So I'm looking for a lot of good things out in Stingley and that in the defensive secondary, as you said, great defense and somebody said the best thing about this defense is Bo Pelini's 500 miles away. They did bring in a new defensive coordinator and they're really excited about that. And, Joe Brady, who did so well as a passing coordinator in 2019 and then went to the NFL, 2 of his guys who come back from the NFL and are running that offense now. So they're going to be looking a lot more like 2019 than they did 2020. And that's going to be trouble for everybody.
Speaking of trouble, this is my sleeper in the SEC. You're going to love the answer. I think it's Ole Miss, just a sleeper. They've got 8 returning on the offense. They've got Matt Corral. This kid could possibly win the Heisman at Ole Miss this year. The question mark is they only have 4 returning on defense. And if and they got DJ Durkin in as a defensive coordinator, one of the co-defensive coordinators, along with Chris Partridge. And DJ Durkin, wherever he's gone, defensively, his teams have done really well. Of course, the disaster at being the head coach at Maryland, that's another story for another day. But defensively, whatever this guy has done, at Michigan and wherever else, he's been very successful. So if he has this same kind of success, and Matt Corral takes that next step sleeper and a dangerous Lane Kiffin team who can put up between 40 and 50 a game. They've got a shot in the West, David.
Yeah, you can't leave out Ole Miss, and I'm not saying that just because I cover them for the Red Bull Hawk. We did an article just yesterday. It came out yesterday, I think, about Matt Corral and what he did last year. He was number 3 in QBR last year behind Mac Jones and Justin Fields, and both of those guys were first-round draft choices. He's the 4th SEC quarterback in history to lead the country in total offense per game. The other ones were Pat Sullivan of 1971, and he was the Heisman Trophy winner and a second-round draft choice. Then you had Grossman out of Florida lead the country in total offense, and he was a first-round draft choice and a runner-up for the Heisman. And the third guy who Matt Corral has now joined was, of course, Johnny Manziel. Johnny Manziel led the country in total offense per game, and he won the Heisman and was the first-round draft choice. So now we're looking at Matt Corral. He's in the company of 3 guys who are all first- or second-round draft choices, and we're all Heisman or runner-up winners. So, and he's coming back into this offense for the second year. They did not have a spring training a year ago. They had some preseason practice and stuff to get ready, but now he is totally focused, totally ready. Has the same offensive coordinator, Jeff Levy, back. Has the same head coach back. This is the first time he's ever been able to repeat offensive coordinators and offenses. They've got a great receiving core. John Rice Plumlee has moved out to the slot receiver. It's just going to be an incredible offense to watch. And that's another game I'm looking forward to is them against Louisville. I think that's on Labor Day. I mean, that's going to be there in Atlanta, and that's going to be just a tremendous matchup right there. But I think we're really going to see some electric offensive football out of this Matt Corral kid. He is ready to go. 30-1, I think, right now on the Heisman. So you might be able to make a pretty good penny right there if you get in now before the season starts. And defensively, they lost Jacquez Jones, their leading tackler from last year. And, he went to Kentucky. He just thought he had a better shot at the pros playing for Kentucky. And that was the only reason that I know of. And, they're going to have to rebuild there. But, again, they had some great athletes and did some fantastic recruiting on the defensive line and the defensive front this year. So they're really looking forward to this season, both offensively.
David, we got about a minute and a half left in the show. We got through about half the conference, so we should have you back on maybe next Friday if you'd like to come back on and we can talk about the rest of the conference. I believe next Friday is the 20th of August. It would be at 1 p.m. Eastern. I want to get to Auburn, and I want to get to Florida, and I want to get the rest because this conference is so deep. So we'll have to have you back on then. Thanks so much for coming on today. I just saw we lost connection with you. That's okay. So what we'll do is we'll have you back on next week. That is fine. Works out perfectly. We'll talk about Auburn, Florida, South Carolina, Tennessee, and the rest of these really good football teams in the nation's best conference in college football. It's definitely the deepest, and it definitely is so top-heavy. Mark Mancini still here with me. Mark, looks like we got about 20 seconds left in the show. I just want to thank you for producing the show for Wayne today, and the crew will all be back next week. Hopefully we'll get David on next Friday to preview the rest of the conference. So our next show live on Blog Talk Radio will be next Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern. You can listen in blogtalkradio.com or 1-347-205-9631. That's part 1 of our Southeastern Conference football preview. We'll do next part 2 on next Friday. Have a great week, everybody.